the language for it, which Biophilia has been able to accord us, is something that, you know, helps you to articulate your connection to nature better and helps you to integrate it better in whatever you design, whether that is buildings, whether that is, you know, our clothes, our food. But today the conversation is buildings. So before we go deeper into this, I'd really love to acknowledge the people who started the whole biophilia conversation. Of course, this has been there for quite some time, since the 60s, and very grounded and centered in the West. And, you know, the Eric Fromms, the Stephen Kellett, who brought about biophilic design, people like Elizabeth Calabrese, who even anchored, you know, principles of biophilic design. And these are people who will also, some of them will be joining us physically in Nairobi. So I'd really love to, you know, just take the moment to honor the work that they've done, the amount of research that has been done to help us understand and to help us voice this connection that we have with nature. But I'd also like to remind us that this is a way of life that we have lived here in Kenya, in Africa, as Africans. This is not a new concept. The word could be new, fairly new here, but this way of living in balance, in harmony with nature, is something that is innate to us. So, yeah, I think this is a remembrance. I keep mentioning this over and over. Biophilia is a remembrance for us, because this is a way of life that we have built, we have lived. This is a way of, you know, doing and constructing that we have actually lived through. So this is not necessarily importing a Western idea. This is just a remembrance of it. And I know people have really asked, isn't biophilia green building? As a green building professional, I'd also like to anchor the fact that, you know, green building is different, slightly different from biophilia, because the questions that we ask are the questions, you know, are what helps us to ground whatever we are doing. When you look at green building, it asks, how do we reduce harm? But when you look at biophilia, it adds another bigger layer. How do we regenerate? How do we bring an element of, you know, spirituality? How do we bring an element of culture, grounding ourselves in, you know, our identity? How do we return to that? And, you know, this is what biophilia is offering: a deeper layer, a deeper way of connecting with our buildings, a deeper way of integrating wonder and awe and sounds of nature, and, you know, bringing that healing element, because all this research is showing us that, yes, actually nature is good for your health. And that's what we are all about, trying to help us to have healthy buildings, reconnect to our identity in the way we build. And we'll get to see that today from the different speakers that we have, who will showcase how nature-based solutions, how biophilic design has been integrated in the different spaces that they are in. And you can get to converse and see, how do we make this bigger and scale it up within our different countries. So, before I finalize, I'd like to say that GBLS is a non-profit society, very young organization that is just propelled by volunteers who really believe in biophilia, who really believe in this, you know, possibility of reconnecting to our identity. And I'd love to acknowledge the volunteers who have made this possible today, and also who are working to ensure that when you come to Nairobi in August, you are going to really have a good experience. So thank you to the team. And yes, I'd love us to just enjoy ourselves, ask questions, and be part of this conversation. And let's meet in August. So thank you so much, Marcy. I think I'll take it back to you. And yeah, let's enjoy the conversation today.
I'm not going to leave you that easy. Let me ask you one question. Why biophilia from your end?
Why biophilia?
Simplest terms.
Because biophilia is everything. You know, biophilia is quite scientific. It explains our connection to nature, but then nature is everything. Everything is interconnected, and biophilia gives us the framework to connect everything, whether that's the food, the architecture, the way we see ourselves. So I honestly see biophilia as the missing link to all sustainability frameworks, because it's everything. It connects everything.
Okay, that's the most simplified way possible, but I love it. I love it. And I know you can really speak. So I'm going to have to to give first Kai this particular position to, to know who Kai is and what she does, because I know I have a very, very big introduction for you, Kai. But one question first, Kai, just to break the ice. I know you love everything nature and anything regenerative, but I don't want you to speak about anything about your career. Tell us something about you besides your career or work.
Well, I love two things. Well, one that you can hear in the background, my son, he's having his own biophilic moments here. Um, it's not my work, but it is because that's who I am. I am biophilia. My garden, and I love to dance. Those two things are the things to know about me for now. For now, more will come up later. Maybe we'll see.
That's true. That's true. Explain to us what is regenerative systems.
Regenerative systems are systems that are able to, well, let's first step away from the system itself and look and see the system as a person designing it, which is a lot of the times how I see it. What it means for me is that I'm able to see as much of the beginning, as much of the end, and the patterns that sustain the meeting point of the beginning and the end, and can move between the beginning of an idea, for instance, the seed, when you put it in the ground, and I can envision in my mind all of what is required, all the patterns that need to be working together in harmony. And at times harmony is, there's an aspect of dissonance that at times, I mean, when you think of composting, things have to be clashing against each other. Heat, it's a disintegration. So it's not just this cute kumbaya thing. It's, that death is part of regeneration, and being able to see that system from the beginning, from inception, conception, to where it composts, where it dies, and finding a way to sort of like fold that spectrum so the beginning and the end meet, and it's one continuous loop. It's just a continuous loop. And everything that is touched by this system is provided the conditions for thrive. So in the simplest way that I can describe regenerative systems, that's what a regenerative system is, and that's how it works.
Now, you had included, we have one of your images that I think Ellie is going to share at the background. And you wanted to explain more about how regenerative systems work, especially in our time and age. Would you like to continue with that particular image and show what exactly, because I know you're very image visual, you're a visual person. Would you like us to showcase your particular image for you to show? Ellie, are you able to show this particular image?
Yeah, just give me 1 minute.
Okay. In the meantime, Kai,
Yes.
would you love me to lovely introduce you? Your very amazing bio is very heavy, I would say. But people who haven't met you will not really know the fun side of you. That's why I wanted to start with a question that was never
that will humanize me.
Yes, that will, tone it a bit, because for people who don't understand regenerative science, they will not. Thank you, Ellie, for that particular image. So, Kai, can I give you, can I introduce you amazingly?
Yes, please go ahead.
So Kai, as you can see, she's a very amazing regenerative systems practitioner. She actually is located in Tanzania and working across, food and sovereignty, land-based healing, nature building and women health. She's also the founder of Kairetu Forest and co-founder of Maito, and serves as a regional programs director in Africa for Wombs of the World Foundation. Kai is beyond, words that we can think of, because she's also explored different ecological systems, and restoring the body are part of some of the practices that she has, viewing regeneration through the lens of pattern hospitality. So she has so many things that she's also doing in the sector of regeneration through writing and publishing across different platforms. And I'm pretty sure you can come across through her articles here and there, including the seed sovereignty entry in the Encyclopedia of Environmental Justice. So her work is beyond just Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania. She's also global, across base. Kai, now I think you can continue to explain with this particular image the levels of regenerative systems.
All right, thank you for the intro. So I will talk a little about pattern hospitality, which is for me the essential oil of my perspective and how I work within regenerative systems design. I think the built environment, the biophilic design conversation lives within the bigger regenerative systems conversation. Excuse me.
No worries, no worries. Alianka is part of us.
Alianka is with us always.
Yes.
So pattern hospitality. My work primarily is noticing patterns and constantly looking at, I go to a forest, I love being in forest, I visit the forest and I stand there and I say, okay, so what patterns are wanting me to notice them, to observe them, to take them with me into my design work. And that ability to invite, that ability to observe before we are saying, this is what I want, this is what I want to control, that ability to first pause and notice what patterns are coming to the surface, what patterns are available for us to see and interact with. That is what I call pattern hospitality. And then beyond that, tending the conditions that make that invitation possible, that make the invitation of living systems to express their own intelligence. Because our living systems, the living systems that we are part of, are so intelligently designed and continue to evolve within this intelligent design. We see it with our own bodies. And especially as a woman, and this is part of the work that I do, especially as a woman, I know in my body seasons and cycles because I live through them. That is not new to me. So for that reason, it is easier for me as a person from that position to see and notice seasons and cycles in the world, in our planet, at a relational level, human to more than human kin, within our systems. And so the 4 layers that I am very curious about are the individual, the inner garden, our body wisdom, health, inner ecology, self-awareness, our ability to repair and develop, repair and progress, the healing and wholeness. And one of the conversations that I'm excited for at the conference is going to be delving into exactly this: health, wellness, and well-being. Where does the built environment, biophilic design, where do they interact with that individual well-being, and then the collective well-being, mental health, our physical health, emotional health, all of that? Everything is connected. Then the next bit is the relational, the web of connection. How are the spaces we're building allowing us to interact with each other? How are they? And you'll realize I'm going to ask a whole bunch of questions. It's how I think. But how are the spaces we're creating, our built environment? How are we designing these spaces, building the spaces, the materials we're using? How do these enhance our ability to be in relationship with each other, to be in relationship with the planet that we occupy, the ecosystems that we're part of? What does reciprocity look like as we're constructing, as we're thinking about what we're building? How are we being in reciprocity with where we're sourcing our materials, the communities that are part of our construction, indigeneity? How are we considering the web that holds all of this connection together? And I like to work with the analogy of a spider. If you watch a spider building its web, it does this thing that looks like
Kai, I'm not sure if it's me who has lost you for a second. Is it from my end?
It's also from my end.
Yeah.
Also on your end?
Yeah.
Kai, I think we lost you. Kai. Has she dropped off by any chance?
She's back on.
Because I can't hear her from my end.
Here I am.
Oh, you're back. Oh, good.
Yeah. Technology attempted to kick me out. It shall not prevail.
I know.
So anyways, what I was saying was, at that relational level, the psychosocial level, how are we building for inclusivity? Are we thinking about the other abled people? Are we thinking about blindness? Are we thinking about someone who has to be wheeled up or wheel themselves up into a building? Are we thinking about people on the spectrum? You know, how are we, what does belonging look like for people different from neurotypical people when we're constructing our spaces? And therefore, what fodder are we putting into the relational aspect of our designing? Then the next layer is the systemic. What systems sustain the ability to design biophilically, the ability to build biophilically? What are the political systems? What are the health systems? What are the economic systems? What are the cultural systems? What institutions are we interacting with? We have to be thinking about how all of these things touch each other, how all of these things interact with each other. And going back to the spider, which is where I dropped off, if you look at a spider building its web, it does this thing that looks like it's dancing and plucking. And I really like spiders, so I like watching them. And it took me a while to figure out what was going on. What the spider is doing is it started to construct its web. As it adds another line, as it adds another string, it plucks the string and listens and feels for the strength of the string. Is it strong enough? Is it tight enough? Is it, and the moment it shifts that one string, it completely reconfigures the entire web. That is how our systems work. That is how living systems work. You pull on one string, it affects the entire web of systems. As we are constructing, are we taking this to consideration, that the way we construct, the way we design our built environment, the way we occupy it, then advises the systems in place, maintains the systems in place, and can go between enhancing, creating, building, destroying, and shifting what needs to be shifted. So there's so much power. We all, right now, most of us are inside a building. Most of us are. If you are not right now, at some point in your day, you will be. All of these spaces that we occupy determine so much about how we think, how we see, how we interact with the natural world. And then now coming into the natural world, which we are part of. So when I talk about nature, the use of the word nature can be an interesting one for me, because I first think what we are an expression of nature. Me going to take a walk in a park, going to take a walk in the forest is not going to nature. I too am an expression of nature. And if we interact with ourselves and the things that human beings busy ourselves with, all of the things we call development, if we are approaching all of that as expressions of nature, then our thinking shifts drastically and significantly, because we're not this thing over here attempting to build buildings that are in consideration, that are considering and taking care of nature over there. The same way our buildings are affecting what we think of as nature over there is the same way they are affecting us here, because we are the same thing. So going to the last membrane, the biggest membrane, the planetary or Earth community. So the ecosystems, biodiversity, climate balance, sacred reciprocity. We belong to the Earth. We are an expression. We are born of this Earth. So as we go about our architectural, technological pursuits, how are we finding ways to express our love for what is natural, for our planet, for ourselves? What does that look like? What do we have to be, what patterns do we have to be observing? How are we impacting these patterns? Are we tending to them? First, are we noticing them? Are we noticing the way water interacts with, the way our buildings interact with water, the rivers, the lakes, the aquifers, our ocean? Are we thinking about all of this? Energy systems. And then when you think about the line sort of threading all of this, lineage and time, spirituality, how are we transferring what we know? And I really like what Wangoi said, that biophilia, the term, could be new, but as Africans, there's very little about biophilia, the term, that is new. This is our lived experience. We have not strayed far enough from biophilia for this to be at the point of complete detriment. We have brothers and sisters in other parts of the world that have arrived at that point, and they therefore have needed to do the work to remember biophilia. And so they have a lot to offer us before we get to the point of complete destruction, to put it lightly. So how are we holding up? How are we holding patterns? How are we allowing ourselves to see them? Our education, does it teach us how to observe, how to see, how to notice patterns, to tend to them, and to restore? As we are building, as we are tending, are we also building in ways that restore what has been broken, restore what has been damaged? as well as push us forward to intending to what we call progress and development and advance. So I think I'm done for now.
I know you're not done, but because of the webinar, because of the webinar, you've tried to, put it into an understanding format. But one thing I want to ask is regenerative systems intertwined with biomimicry? Because somehow, somewhere, when you mentioned about the web, it kind of brought into a biomimicry type of format, especially us as designers when we are inspired by nature. Are they interconnected somewhere, or is it thought process? What would you say about it?
Absolutely connected. I think biomimicry is one of the ways that we tend to patterns, is a method of pattern hospitality, because we first have to start by observing the patterns in our biospheres that we want to mimic. And then we come in with the human understanding and say, hey, okay, I see Alienka. So we first have to start with observing, and then we tend to them, and then we are replicating these patterns that we think are worth our noticing and replicating, which I think that's there. What we think is worth our attention is the thing to work on.
Okay, that's really good. Well, people can ask questions. You can send your questions on the chat box, and I think Ellie can coordinate on that sector. He will send in the questions to the various speakers that are coming through. So, Kai, should we give because I know questions are coming. Yes, we do have a few. Ellie, will you compile, or should I get to read them out loud? But in the meantime, I think I would love to ask one question, and this particular is for shelter. Now, in the shelter perspective, one thing we noticed is that we don't have buildings that get to last, like the way we had back in the day. You would hear a building that has lasted since the 90s, 80s. Where is the disconnect? Is it our materials, our designs? As a regenerative systems expert, where is the disconnect?
I would say the disconnect is, I don't know that it is as much about where, like in what area, in what field is the disconnect. I think the disconnect is that we have gotten disconnected from who we are as expressions of nature. So as we're building, we've decided, it is just mud. It is not, it's not good enough, and yet you look at, John is going to talk about Ram the Earth. It's, so we, at some point, I mean, I can speak for Africans. I know that the colonial disruption really did that to shift our education, to shift our connection to the land. And that has been a major severing, our connection to the land, our connection to spirituality. And I don't mean religion, but the ability to be aware of that connection that exists between us and the land, us and the planet, us and each other, us and our other modern human kin. That is the point of disconnect. Because once we've lost that, we've lost our ability to see the value of the earth as a building material, of the soil as a building material. And it has proven to be very long lasting, as you've indicated. We've lost the ability to design in ways that have been tried and tested by other animals, by natural disaster. We want straight. I really don't like straight lines. Even in farming, we want straight lines, and there's very little in the natural world that expresses in straight lines. So there's like there that has made us believe that we are superior to all else on this planet. And it's this superiority complex that is affecting our ability to stop and observe and see what patterns are saying, hey, look, we have something to offer you. You have something to be offered and receive. So I would say that is where the challenge is. That's where the disconnect is, as opposed to in education, in architecture, in design, it then infects all of the things.
Thank you so much, Kai. We can speak about regenerative designs forever. So far, we do not have a question, but I'm pretty sure we do have a Q&A afterwards as people are digesting the entire information. For some people, this is new. For others, this is a continuation of this class. And I'm pretty sure, Kai, can we say people can study this as well?
Absolutely. Go stand in a forest. That's all the education you need. Go stand in an old forest, and it will give you all of what you need, I promise.
Nature is a full book. That's what we say. Nature is
it's the teacher, the book, it's everything.
Thank you so much, Kai. You give a lot of insights every single day. I interact with you on a constant, and I am in awe of your amazing wisdom on a constant basis. So now we will get to introduce our next speaker, and our next speaker is John from Uganda. I hope you are around.
Yes, I am around.
You are. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am fantastic. Yeah. Every single time I hear Ramdath, you are the first person that comes to mind.
Wow, that is amazing that I'm the first person that comes to your mind.
Yes, you do, because you are the first person that I got to learn about Ramdath from. So that is why you keep popping every single time in my mind when that question comes up.
Wow.
Yes.
That's amazing.
So John is an amazing next expert, especially on Ramdath. And he is a civil and environmental engineer who is a sustainability advocate. He is also a co-founder and CEO at Megcom EcoBuild International, a social enterprise dedicated to advertising regenerative and climate smart construction across Africa. And I know he's not even limited in Africa. He is global. Some of these conversations, I always say they're global. Because they're not just limited to borders. We are not limited to borders. John, I know you also have an extensive experience in sustainable building systems, right? With a focus on now Ramdath and construction, natural building materials, and low carbon housing solutions. That is an amazing, bio for you. And I know I can go on and on into the different aspects. But allow me to ask you, John, would you tell us what is really Ramdath for people who do not know what this is, and why Ramdath from your perspective and expertise?
Well, thank you, Mercy, for that wonderful introduction. That was amazing. Where Ramdath is basically, should I call it natural science? Because what we step on as we walk is what builds what we stay in. So the only difference is that it's now engineered, not the way our great grandparents used to use it, what we step on. So this time around, what we are advocating for, or what we are doing, is basically engineering the materials that are just surrounding us to come up with the structures that are going to outlive us. Around Earth, the easiest definition that I can give is forming the formwork and then compact your soil. Once you compact your soil, then you have a building. It's basically an engineering that is now taking shape. And why rammed earth? Like Kai was talking about nature and why we have to think about everything before we start, coming up with different solutions. Rammed earth has proved itself to be one of the building technique that when you live in it, for example, if it is too hot outside, it's going to be warm it's going to be cold in the inside, and when it is too cold, it's going to be warm. So it is one way of coming up with buildings that are going to outlive us, that are going to save the planet, because we are looking at healing the planet. And you cannot heal the planet with too much concrete or too much cement, because we very well know the production of cement produces too much of greenhouse gases. And this is something that we really want to go against. We might not achieve it globally or continental wise, but when we start one by one, we advocate for it and we keep it going, we know it will catch fire. Just like this webinar that is, this conference that we are on, talking about these regenerative systems, the biophilia. Okay, biophilia word is very new to me, and its definition has not yet settled in my head, but it's all that we are looking at, having buildings that are really going to save us live more years. Because for example, back in the days, the lifespan of human nature used to be a bit longer, but apparently you find us dying at a very tender age, and we don't know what is really killing us. But one of the things for me that have come really part and parcel of me is to ensure that if we bring in this kind of construction that our parents used to stay in, actually our great grandparents, not even our parents, they have been living in concrete houses. So I think this is something that we can have, something that we can advocate for globally, and it is something that is taking shape. For example, right now I'm on a rammed earth construction site, and this shows that what we are advocating for, it is taking shape. And personally, I feel we are doing something great.
That's good. Would you like to explain how rammed earth is done on construction? Because I know the reason why I'm asking that is because we have QSs in the building, or rather at the webinar. I don't know why I'm saying building, but forgive me for that. At the webinar, because one they keep asking is usually the money aspect of things, especially in construction. How do you, if you explain the ways on how we use rammed earth, and would you explain the cost effectiveness of this particular system?
Okay. Before the cost analysis of rammed earth, we have to first understand how is this really done and how do we come up with it. One, it's the materials that we use. The material selection is basically it's dependent on the site that we are operating on or that we are developing. Reason why we say rammed earth is cheaper than the conventional construction, because now this is disruptive construction. All the material that you need, for example, the soil that you need is going to be on site. Then now you're curbing the costs on transportation of, or importation of different kind of materials. The Maram soil, Africa is blessed with, very good soil. We have very good Maram soil. We have very good sand soil. We have, we have the stones. When you need the cut stones, you're going to find them on site and things like that. So apart from the stabilized one, because we are also looking at having it fully engineered, and by having it fully engineered means that we are going to stabilize it with cement. But then the cement that we are using is not more than 70%. Usually it is less than 70% in the total mix. And that means it is way cheaper than the other material, the other construction aspect, the other conventional construction. Also, during the construction, of course, the foundation has to come out as in the normal building, because you cannot have now the soil material starting from the soil material. No, you have to raise the foundation a little bit higher. Generally, how we do the construction bit, and then now the mixing is now where all your savings are going to come in. On the other end, you need the clay burnt bricks. Here you don't have the clay burnt bricks, and now that is also another saving on climate, on the environment, because you're not going to have burnt bricks, to pollute the environment. That is one. Then you're also going to find that the soil that you need, depending on the project that you're going to develop, it might be found on that particular site, or it might be sourced from a nearby, from a nearby. You might get a nearby source, and you find that you're reducing on most of the costs. And once the walls are put, once the formwork is put and you have rammed and you've compacted, now during the compaction, you have to fully afford the engineering principles. The maximum dry density has to be achieved, just like you introduced me as a civil and environmental engineer. So all these aspects of construction have to be, put in place, so that when you're coming up with a project or with any building, it is fully going along with the codes of construction. You don't have to be out of the codes of construction. So once you have the formwork put up, and once you have the walls rammed, then once you strike the formwork, you're going to have smooth walls, just like the picture in that presentation. The walls are going to be smooth. Now the interesting bit of rammed earth is that you're not going to need too much of the finishing. Usually what we do with the finishing, you only do the dusty proofing, and that is easily available. And also you don't need to plaster with massive mortar or whatever cement that is available. You don't have to plaster, because we want the finished product to exactly align with the surrounding environment. That is why you see one of the project that is shown there. What you see on ground, or the soil that is available on ground, is what you have. And then once this rammed earth building has reached its lifespan or its end, when it goes down, it doesn't affect now the soil that is available. It's just the same material that is going to go down, which means there is no damage that is going to be caused to the earth where it came from. So when you look at when you combine all those that I've talked about, you find that rammed earth is way cheaper once it is done really properly. And also, when it comes to the labor, because this is not rhetoric science that you're going to need so many engineers on site, you're going to need so many, also the guys who are going to do the construction. We only need the community. You mobilize the community, get one guy who understands the concept, train them, and then you're going to have this project coming up with the Juakalis doing it. And you don't need a lot of money to pay these guys. So it really makes it cheaper to construct with rammed earth. There is also mud construction, which is quite different from the rammed earth. The mud construction is what now was used a long time ago, that now we are redefining. We are, so that it can fit in the modern era. Just like when you look at one of the places that I usually want to copy a leaf from is Stone Town in Zanzibar. Zanzibar was fully constructed. The new Stone Town, sorry, the old Stone Town. I understand they are putting up a new Stone Town, a new city. But the old Stone Town in Zanzibar was fully constructed with natural materials. And these buildings have lived way, I think, since the times of slave trade. And these buildings are still standing. This is when they are now trying to, redevelop and come up with the new Stone Town. And also when you look at the Wall of China, the Great Wall, it is natural materials. So what we are doing is based from what was done a long time ago, but we want to bring it back so that we can also, have longer, live longer, just like the people used to live. So it is quite cheaper depending on how you attack it and how you implement the project.
And just on that same thought process, there's a question that came in from Tiffany, who is a construction manager. She's asking if the strength, she's curious about the strength, the structural strength of rammed earth compared to concrete. Would you add?
Wow. Yes. Thanks, Tiffany, for that question. It is now the strength compared to rammed earth, the strength of concrete compared to rammed earth is before we do anything, we just in normal construction, we have to do basic research and also go to the labs. Usually when we were on projects, we advise clients that we have to, because each site or each project is different from the other. And the soils here in Uganda, they may be, actually they are different from the soils in Kenya. They are different from soils in Tanzania. So usually what we do mock-up walls and ram them to full compressive strength. And then we go to the labs, we test now the compressive strength. Surprisingly, that some of the projects that I've worked on, most of these walls have had a compressive strength above 5 megapascals, and that is because when you look at cement or concrete is always around 5 to 7. So this is above 5 megapascals, and that means that comparably to concrete, it is as strong as concrete, and it sometimes is even stronger than concrete, because we look at developing a rock-like wall. So these are rocks that we are creating, and we are having buildings.
That's so true, and I think unfortunately the time's up. But before you get to finish, my question is the artisans that get to learn rammed earth, because this is a skill that needs to be taught. Is it something that people can come and be taught, or do you have to do research by yourself?
No, this is something that can be taught, and what we do is on every site, because what we do on every site is we have to involve the communities, because we are looking at a scenario whereby everyone can put up a shelter for him or herself, and that is the drive that we have. So in every community, wherever we have a project, is that what we do is we train the artisans, because this is something not so hard and you don't need a lot of engineering knowledge to do it. So we train the artisans in every community where the project is, and that is how we go over projects. You don't have to employ so many engineers, like I said, on site. You only need one expert, train the community members, because these are community projects that whereby you're going to need community members to be involved. Even if you're constructing your own house, you're going to need the community people that are within that village. We train them on that, and then you have your house put up.
That is very important. Even job creation is very key in every aspect, especially in construction. So thank you so much, John. With time, I think just before I let you go, we have one more question. So from Cyrus, speaking on advocating for eco-friendly methods like rammed earth, with the aim of being readopted, what's the lifespan, strength? Okay, we have spoken about strength, the lifespan, and how do we clearly sell this idea to clients since they see it as an inferior tech? Wow, that's a very inferior tech of the past, which they constantly escaped. How do we fight the superior new tech, which the trendsetters have also left in the past? That is very inferior tech.
Yes, that is right. He is right, and those are some of the misconceptions that we are facing. Most of the people who are doing, because what we do is we are looking at how do we save the people, but then the people don't want to be saved, so they always ask. And also the other misconception is that rammed earth is for the poor. This is not right. That's a myth. What we have to do is not to stop, because people are saying this is an inferior tech. But on our end, what we are saying, we must not stop. We must not be demotivated, because the more we have them going is the more, and the more we have people live in them, is the more these people are living in them are going to, being speaking good about them. So for us to fight that misconception of it being an inferior tech is to keep going, not to stop advocating for it, not to stop constructing it. And also I've seen a question in the messages about how do we protect the walls. The design, for example, the architects or the engineers, whenever you're designing, for example, the roof, normally we have the roof of 0.5 or 0.6 roof overhang, or the eaves. So this time around, we are saying the eaves have to be a bit longer, at least 1 meter, so that these walls are free covered within the system. And also from the foundation, we normally put an upstand of about 200 millimeters, so that we have our walls not starting exactly from the slab, so that now these walls are free protected from the rains, on the above side, and also from the splashes from the downside. So I've seen that question in there, and I really wanted to tackle it. I think he was an architect who was asking about how do we protect these walls from the rains.
Thank you so much for your time and expertise on this particular rammed earth. It's actually quite deep. I'm pretty sure 30 minutes cannot cover up everything that we have on rammed earth. But thank you so much, John. We'll head next to our next presenter, who is Brian. Brian, are you with us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Andy?
I am well and fantastic.
Yeah.
So Brian is also a founding partner and the Green Building and Sustainability Lead at Circadian Living. So he's also a researcher in interior and landscaping design practices in Uganda. He will be giving us different expertise in regenerative materials and local craftsmanship and sustainability innovation that create, healthier and more resilient living environments. Karibu sana, Brian.
Thank you, Wanjiku. Are you able to see my presentation?
Not really, but I think if you're not able to, Ellie can be able to assist. Oh, you can. I think it's. Oh, yes.
All right.
Now we can. Yes. Yes, we can see your presentation. You can go ahead.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Wanjiku, for the introduction. Yeah, it's a privilege to be a speaker on this conversation. Yeah, on natural materials and how we can build the future of Africa. Yeah. My presentation, it's basically a storytelling. So I won't focus much on the slides I have, but the photos are just for you to appreciate what has been done in Africa, especially in Uganda. So I'll take you on a journey of the past, the present, and also, yeah, usher you into the future of construction with bamboo. I think I moved a little fast. Yeah, so that in the slide you see there shows two different ways bamboo is being integrated with other natural materials. On one hand, we have the integration of timber and bamboo. This is actually on an actual project currently being built in Uganda. So it's an eco-lodge in windy Western Uganda. So it's designed by Pablo Luna Studios, and it's being built by Studio Akeka as also partly the designer and the contractor. Then on the other side, you see the combination of bamboo and mud. So this is a research project being undertaken by the Local Works Foundation in Uganda to provide relief shelter for refugees in Uganda. So these two innovations with bamboo and other natural materials show how we integrate indigenous knowledge, local materials, and the craftsmanship. And with technologies like this, we are able to preserve these local techniques of building and ensure that we'll have it for generations to come. So the question I would now ask is how do we then integrate indigenous knowledge in building with bamboo? So in the slides you can see on one side there are women weaving together pieces of bamboo to make I would call them the bamboo mats, and then on the other hand you can see how the bamboo mats are being applied in construction to make up what we term as the ceiling of the building. So both those techniques are actual projects in Uganda. So the one above is the eco-lodge I talked about being built in Windy. Then the one below is an actual project built within Kampala. So somewhere in the presentation you will see a completed project. But behind these techniques, there are jobs being created for the locals, especially the women and youth. And this is shaping the future of our we are building with bamboo in East Africa and Africa and across the world. And this ensures that we are keeping indigenous knowledge and techniques in use for long. And this shows that we're already making a shift to going back. Let me not say a shift, but going back to our roots of building with natural materials. Because if I say shift, it will mean that we've been doing something else and then moving to this. But this has been there long before even our parents were born. So right now, it's a matter of us appreciating the natural materials we have, and then building with them such that the buildings we have and live in are in harmony with nature. And these are buildings that are going to show, for example, communities how to preserve nature, how to preserve culture and identity. And in this way, we are able to achieve biophilia in the way we build, and that is with bamboo. And of course, my previous speaker showed how we build with earth, which is rammed earth. Then the next question I would then ask, how can you build with bamboo for health and well-being, and what benefits does building with bamboo give us to ensure that we live in buildings that enhance our health and well-being? So you can see in the pictures how many people are carrying that long building component of bamboo. So you can see how many people are getting employed just with using local materials that we have naturally existing or in abundance in Africa. And then on the other hand, you can see how the material is now being used in construction. I believe if any of us was to be in this building at this moment, your eyes will always be at the ceiling and not even looking at the floor, because you'll appreciate the technique, you'll appreciate the effort put in to put the components together. And also, just looking at the components, perhaps you could tell how many hands have touched this building. And that is the future I want us, all of us in this conversation, and the designers here and the engineers, that is the future I want us to envision with building with materials. But building with bamboo alone, it's not just a regenerative material, but bamboo has far more benefits than just being a material that we use to build in harmony with nature. So bamboo has a material, it's able to resist things like dust and other components that are man-made that affect our health. So these cause allergies. So we get skin irritations. We start to sneeze. So, but these components are already in materials that we've engineered and not materials built with nature. So you can see how a material like bamboo enhances our well-being. Then on the other hand, bamboo itself, it contributes to our mental well-being, because its natural colors, its texture, the way the material generally grows. I don't want to get into the very technical terms, but I just want us to appreciate bamboo as a material. So if you're in a house built with bamboo, you won't feel the way you would feel in a house built with cement and bricks. I've had this experience of being in a timber building. There's a natural way you feel, and there's a mood you have. I just don't have the right words to express that. But I believe if you have a chance to visit a building built with bamboo or built with timber, there's that natural feeling, there's that mood you'd have, that you would want to keep being in that building. So that is how the material itself enhances our well-being. Then bamboo, on the other side, it's a material that naturally absorbs sound, and by absorbing this sound, it tends to mimic the natural sound you would feel in maybe in the forest. So once it absorbs that sound, there's a way it moves in the material, and you wouldn't feel it the way you would feel the sound of a vehicle passing by. It would there's a way to change the sound upon the impact on it. Yeah, that's what I can share a bit regarding how bamboo enhances our health and well-being. Then the next question I would ask is, what makes bamboo a preferred building material? I think that is what most of us are interested in. But I would start with saying that bamboo, it's a material that has not just been with us yesterday. Bamboo has been in use for centuries, long before even our parents were born. So it's just a matter of us now appreciating how our foreparents built in harmony with this material, and how they used their indigenous knowledge and the craftsmanship to ensure that these techniques and the knowledge are transferred from generation to generation. So back then, the families that became, for example, master builders in building with bamboo, and then the families that became master weavers. So the particular families that were known to be good at a particular skill, for example, in building with bamboo. That's the vision I want us to have for the next generation of builders and designers we are going to nurture to utilize this indigenous knowledge and also materials. Then bamboo is a fast-growing material, so typically in less than a year you have it grown to its full maturity that enables you to use it in many forms, perhaps for weaving, perhaps for building, perhaps in carpentry. Then its attractive look makes it a suitable material for projects, especially in hospitality. But it shouldn't just be hospitality. It should be in the houses we live in. But we shouldn't, prefer to drive out of the city just to go and experience a building built with bamboo. We should experience this within our living spaces in the cities. Then bamboo as a material has a low embodied carbon. So typically its processing is done by hand, and there are minimal finishes you do to it, that is varnishing. But beyond this, the treatments you also give to it. But before the treatment, you have to design it to be repairable and to be replaceable without entirely destroying the building. So this is how our foreparents built. It's something we have to now keep in practice. It's something we have to nurture into the young designers and the engineers of today. And I believe with this, you'll be able to keep this material in use for long. Bamboo itself is also a very versatile material. It has the ability to absorb a number of forces like strong winds, earthquakes. So this makes it a preferred building material in places with natural occurrences like earthquakes, countries like Nepal, the Philippines. So it has been already adopted even in the national building practices as a material used for building homes. Yeah, that's what I'll share for, what makes a bamboo preferred compared to other materials. And I think, the most interesting bit. So these are all projects built in Uganda, and some are under construction. So at the top, we have the Eco Lodge being built in Bundi by Studio Akeka. Then on the other hand, we have the bamboo relief housing being built by the Local Works Foundation. And now we have the pop-up Boma. This is a project in Kampala built by Local Works. Then lastly, we have the bamboo pavilion, still built by Studio Akeka somewhere in eastern Uganda. I believe my presentation has been able to inspire you on how you build with bamboo. And I would say, when the desirable is not available, then the available becomes desirable. Bamboo is a material for healthy building in Africa, and we should embrace the indigenous knowledge and the local craftsmanship to achieve this. Thank you.
Hi, you can hear me? Ryan, I think you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right.
So the one question I wanted to ask was about the water, the moisture when it comes to bamboo, because I know bamboo, we always have this misconception about how we have its moisture resistance is not, it's questionable. What can you say about it? Especially, and the other question is, can you use it externally?
Thank you, Wanjiko. That's an interesting question. I would
Yeah.
say, yeah, the use of bamboo, it depends on where you would like to apply it on the building, and it's a different treatment you give it depending on where you're going to apply it. So, for example, if you want to apply it as cladding, like finishing on the exterior, there's a different treatment you give it. So some of the treatments are using the organic salts. The most common is the borax salt treatment. That's the most ecological treatment given to bamboo. But there are other uses where you don't need to treat bamboo. For example, if you're using it on the interior, where it's not prone to moisture, then there's also designing. We are designing for durability. So it's recommended that if you're building with bamboo, don't have it anchored, for example, in concrete, directly in concrete, but rather have like a component, there's like a steel member anchored in the concrete, and then the bamboo itself is screwed onto that steel component. I wish I could show some connection details of how that is done, but yeah, I would say first we have to design for durability before we look at options of treating bamboo for the different applications in construction.
All right. The other question is, like you had said, had mentioned about bamboo. It's good to have it on a local, having people to do it from a local craftsmanship. Can it also be taught like the way we're talking about Ramdath?
Yeah, that's also an interesting question. I would say, yeah, let me look at what we currently have in the education system. So our education system of design still relies on the colonial buildings, like building with cement, building with concrete. But we need to make that shift. We need to turn classrooms into laboratories where students get to experiment with these materials like bamboo. And in this way, they'll be able to appreciate and envision how they would use these materials in right from the design and moving on to construction. And I would say, yeah, there are already courses on building with bamboo, but this is most in Asia, because Asia has a variety of bamboo species compared to the other continents. But I would say locally in Africa, we can advocate for this, can advocate to the policy makers, but that starts with us as designers and builders with bamboo. And if we create the demand for building with bamboo, then we'll be able to also create the demand for teaching the young designers and builders on how to build with bamboo.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that particular question. We'll go through, I'm not sure, Ellie, can you pick any question so far for bamboo? But as they check that, we also have a Q&A at the end of the session. So we will go to our next speaker because I know we are short on time, or rather we are rushing, I would say. So our next speaker, allow me to technology. Kai talked about technology. I had a technical issue a second ago. Give me a minute to just retrieve that. Yes, we are on. Ellie, do we have any question for Ben before?
We had a question from Victor.
Sorry?
We had a question from Victor who was asking, there are a handful of native bamboo species, but most are exotic. Are we just focusing on native species?
Directed to Brian.
Brian, yeah.
Yeah, I can answer that. Yeah, I would say, yeah, that like you mentioned that a variety of native bamboo species, but this depends on the climate as well, the soil. So a number of these species, like Asia has a number of bamboo species compared to Africa. So I'll speak on the case of Uganda. So Uganda, we have bamboo species that have been locally growing, and then we have species that have been introduced. But the most commonly used species for construction, this I'm not sure whether it's native or it was also introduced, called I think I'm forgetting the right botanical name, but the other name is vulgaris. So this species, it's easy to use given its structural composition. This occurs most in the central region of Uganda and western Uganda. Then we have another species called the ABBCE occidentera. So this is naturally occurring. For example, in the West Nile region of Uganda, it's the other hot region of the country, but it has both these species have limitations for application. But I believe with more research and introducing courses in bamboo construction, we'll be able to explore more native species and also look at what applications we can apply to them in construction.
All right, thank you so much for that. We will have to go to our next speaker, and our next speaker is Adib. Adib, are you with us?
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Our amazing speaker
thank you
from
for having
Lebanon.
me on this fascinating webinar. It's so nice to get to see these perspectives from Africa.
Yeah, all the way from Lebanon.
Yes, exactly.
I know we are telling people that we are not just at the borders of East Africa. We are doing it across board and globally. So you are, internationally recognized as a regenerative advisor and environmental architect and forest maker. It's so interesting how these names, we use them on a constant basis, but people don't really understand them to the beat, right? And you're going to explain further on that particular sentence. And then in 2010, you founded the Other Dada, an advisory and architectural practice, pioneering nature-based design. that bridges architecture, ecology, and art to regenerative cities as shared spaces for all of life to thrive. Explain a bit further about, I know it's a bit mouthful for some people, but would you kindly explain what that means?
Okay, so I think, I mean, I will go through my, I've prepared some slides, so I'll go through the slides and hopefully it will become much clearer. And I'm happy to take questions to clarify if anything is unclear. So I prepared some slides that will show some projects, some of our approaches and all of that. So I'm gonna share my screen, just give me a second. Can you see my screen?
Yes, from
Yes.
my end, yes.
So I mean, as you said, I will be talking about regenerating cities, and the work we do is about building a habitat, not only for humans but for other creatures to thrive as well in urban areas. The company I founded back in 2010 is called The Other Dada, and it's a regenerative advisory and architecture practice working on building interspecies habitats. So this idea from biophilia and biomimicry, and understanding that we are nature, also as Kai was saying, and so we are building habitat not only for humans but for other creatures to thrive. And the reason for that is that at the moment cities are not serving us well, from urban heat increase to environmental degradation, pollution cloud, water pollution, landfills, very little green space. So cities, they occupy only about 3% of the surface of the planet, but they're responsible for more than 70% of the pollution and emissions of greenhouse gases. In Lebanon specifically, we have the added challenge of war and ecocide. War, which has unleashed thousands and thousands of tons of greenhouse gases and poisons into the air, the water, the land, the scorching and the destruction of farmland and nature reserves as well. And also, our government's actions, for example, in places where making rivers artificial and putting them in concrete channels. So this, for example, is the Beirut River that was encased in concrete in 1968 and was transformed from being a community area where people used to meet and fish and swim and picnic into becoming a no man's land where the community no longer has access to, becoming a no man's land where all kinds of trash and waste is then thrown into the river, from solid waste to industrial pollution, and even adding solar panels on top, which might seem like a good idea, but it actually further detaches that river from being an actual ecosystem, and it becomes more as an infrastructure. So our mission is to move beyond this idea of sustainability, which is about doing less harm, like how much less CO2 can we emit or how much less water can we use, towards regeneration, which is designing for life. And so designing with the positive impact in mind. And so we are co-creating livable, future-ready cities for all of life to thrive. With this idea that is, coming from biomimicry, that what if our cities could be as effective and generous as a forest, or as a rainforest, or as a mangrove, or as a desert. So cities have come to replace really healthy ecosystems. But what if we were to think of the KPIs of cities in relation to the ecosystems they have come to replace? And so our work is about creating places by reviving ecosystems and uplifting communities by enabling the impact of those communities. So not just coming in to make impact and give that impact to the community, but actually working with the community to enable them and show them the agency they have in making their own impact. So one example is the work that we've been doing on repairing broken systems, such as the Beirut River that I spoke about a little earlier. So this is us with members of the community joining hands to take over the degraded lands next to the concrete river and restoring the native forest ecosystem that was there. So you can see us here planting the tiny native saplings on the banks of the concrete river, which has the sewage running through it. And so this project we call Beirut Serverless Forest. You can see the river in concrete at the top. In summer, there is no fresh water because all of the fresh water is pumped at source, and only sewage water is being pumped back into the river stream. And you can see us here working. This picture was taken back in 2019, so seven years ago, planting the first native forest in the site, which used to be an urban landfill. So with the community, we cleaned up the landfill. We studied with the ecologists the types of species that belong to this place, and then coming back with the community to plant these tiny young saplings. And then in just 2 years' time, you can see the difference between the bottom and the top. So this is just in 2 years' time, we transformed a degraded urban landfill into a thriving forest ecosystem with more than 30 different native species of trees and shrubs, fruiting trees and medicinal shrubs, and all of that. And we've seen so much biodiversity return. And you can see the difference in just 6 years' time from when we were there with the community planting these tiny saplings that you can see on the ground, and then just 6 years later, the thriving ecosystem, which is now totally self-sufficient. So the method that we use, which is called the Miyawaki method of afforestation, basically means that we plant at a very high density, only native species, and after 3 years' time, the ecosystem that forms is totally self-sufficient. It requires zero maintenance, zero chemicals, zero watering after 3 years' time. So these images are just showing the before and after pictures in 2 years' time difference. And we also do a lot of community building through celebrating, every year the anniversary of the forest. So just last month, we celebrated the 7th anniversary of the forest. So we do nature-based play, nature-based therapy in the forest. We do art events and so on. We invite students to come. So we had more than 700 students coming to plant with us as well. But also taking over other types of places. So repurposing private space. So in this example, we worked on a very different scale. So the Beirut River project started with 200 square meters back in 2019 and has grown, because we plan there every single year. So until now has grown to 3,500 square meters. In this project, this is one of our smallest projects. It's repurposing the private space of a bank, where we convinced them to give up one parking spot that we literally cut out of the asphalt, and came with the community, the neighbors, the bank employees, the bank director to plant this space. And this has totally transformed in just 6 months from what we see on the left to what we see on the right. A really fast-growing native forest that, even though it's very small, the impact is actually quite big in bringing the people together that come now and visit it every week. And also the bank has changed their perception of their private space, so that now they started opening their private parking to the public on the weekends. So Saturdays and Sundays, the parking now is open around the forest. People can come in, they can play. They started doing environmental movie screenings every month. They started doing a weekly organic farmers market around the forest. So even those very small actions sometimes have a much bigger impact. And also we consider these as nature-based solutions, because these forests that we're planting, they have several benefits. They help in reducing the temperature in the city. They help in filtering the air pollution. They help in actually managing stormwater. So we can see here the temperature outside of the forest we planted was 52 degrees Celsius. Inside the forest, it's 30 degrees Celsius. So a 22 degrees difference just because of having the forest there. And then the infiltration rate of water into the ground on the bare soil, it took an hour, 15 minutes. On the soil inside the forest, it only took 11 minutes. So also these act as solutions for flood-prone areas. And so really this idea of how can we as designers create conditions to support other life, not just the life of humans. Because when we're creating conditions to support the life of the smallest insect or the smallest plant, we're automatically building healthy spaces for us as well. So by looking to nature, we can inspire a better built environment, working with biomimicry and the teachings of biomimicry, such as this example where we look at termites and how they build their mounds out of the clay and the mud, the sand that is present there, and then using this inspiration in our project. This is, for example, a project in Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh, that uses very high thermal mass, locally sourced materials out of stone, natural rooftops planted with native plants to reduce the heat infiltration, as well as doing studies that allow us to ventilate some parts of the house totally by natural means. So reducing as well the energy consumption and increasing the living comfort inside. So we consider biomimicry as being innovation that is inspired by nature. So not the idea that with the Industrial Revolution, like what can we extract from nature and nature being something else, but biomimicry understanding that we are nature, and so how can we look to nature and learn from nature? And so I will close with this final project where we had the challenge of working in this context in Dubai for COP28, building a temporary pavilion for a museum in Dubai. And the site being totally dead because not only is it mostly concrete, but even the plants that are there are exotic species that are not meant to survive in this desert context. And so our challenge or our proposal was to transition this into a multi-ecosystem habitat, getting inspired from nature, from the structure of pollens to create a very lightweight structure made out of steel that we call the interspecies habitat. And so this is a steel structure that bridges the kind of outdoor concrete amphitheater. And then we design these little cones that are made from material coming from the waste stream, and they are planted with the native species. So again, looking at biophilia and biomimicry and how can we design being inspired by cones and pine cones and different things like that to create these vessels that can host life. And so we worked on rebuilding soil health. We worked on modulating energy, so creating shade in the desert. That's very important for life to be able to thrive. We worked on bringing fresh water by using a machine that we can see all the way to the back, which is called the air-to-water generator that condenses fresh water from the humidity in the air, giving it back to the creatures in a form of a bird bath, and working with passive cooling, and then having plants that are edible at the lower parts of the pavilion. So those are accessible to the humans. And then at the upper parts of the pavilion, the plants are the native plants from the desert. So those are accessible to the birds, the insects, the lizards, and the microorganisms. So creating a structure that is regenerating life on land by providing shade, soil, water, and edible plants for humans and the more than human as well. Since it was installed 2 years ago, we've had more than 40,000 human visitors and thousands of more than human visitors as well, many events and things like that. So it's really become a place where we are bringing together these different creatures. And just ending on this idea that instead of designers kind of doing these temporary projects that eventually go to the landfill, which is what usually happens with, especially with World Expo and COP events and all of that. Our structure, we designed it from the beginning to know that after 2 years' time, when it will be dismantled, hopefully by this September, it will actually be rebuilt underwater to become a coral reef restoration project. So first life, regenerating life on land, second life, regenerating life underwater. Thank you.
Honestly, I am lost of words. I am. And this is the whole point of this webinar and having the conference, is because to tell people that these things are doable. And that is a conversation that people keep questioning, is whenever we mention the word biophilia, they always think it's putting a flower here, a flower there. But it's so much. I mean, look at this entire presentation, and also for Brian, John, Kai, all this information that people have, I would say, quote unquote, had reduced it to just putting a flower out one corner. This is amazing, changing not just land, but also water. This is beautifully done in terms of the architecture. And as a designer, I always go to biomimicry, because that is, nature will always inspire you to get what needs to be done. You never lack ideas. I think it is a solution-based space that you'll always have. But one question is, how do you identify these spaces where you get to put this forests or green spaces that you get to identify?
So usually there's always kind of like a bigger thing at play. So with the Beirut River, which is where we started, I had spent 6 years being this kind of like angry activist for the river, taking people on toxic tours of the Beirut River, showing them the problem, you know, like, look at the pollution, look at what the government did, look at this, that, but not giving them anything that they can act on. So they would come and then they would leave without any practical thing that they could do. The problem was too big, was too costly to fix, and all of that. So it took me a while to figure out that, you know, I wanted to do something very practical that I can do even without the approval of the government. So that project by the river is almost completely like a guerrilla effort. It's been 7 years we're doing it. We don't have the proper permits or anything like that, but because we don't want to wait, and we know that the government doesn't care about these places. So this comes out of a need, like, you know, something needs to be done there, and we want to bring the community back to that place. Instead of just showing them the problem of the river, we're inviting them to participate in a positive action. This puts them in a different mindset that, oh, I can make a difference, and I can really, you know, it's not just that I'm planting a tree, I'm planting a tree that is part of a forest that will become a self-sufficient ecosystem next to the river, and that will be helping the river down the line, or that will bring attention to the fact, you know, of that the river needs to be cleaned up and preserved, and then putting pressure on the government, you know, to do something about it. So some, you know, most times, like, we have these specific things. We've worked with schools that were destroyed by the, you know, after the explosion in Beirut back in August 2020. So going into these places, schools that were destroyed, working with the students in the playground, removing parts of the playground, removing the concrete, planting with the students to create new memories of hope and like places of hope within this kind of like destroyed school. So other NGOs were rebuilding the school as it was, totally concrete. We came and we're like removing concrete and adding plants instead. So every project has a reason for being there. So that's the kind of approach. And it's always, it's always like these projects that have many, also that learning from biomimicry and biophilia, they have many things that they're doing. They're not just doing one thing, you know, as in like, you know, as you're saying, like we just put one flower to give the illusion of biophilia. These projects are really deeply doing multiple things at a time. The project in Dubai, this dome, this pavilion, it's acting as a heat shelter where people go. It's acting as a community space. It's acting as a space for composting. It's regenerating life on land. You know, in a few months it will go underwater. So it has multiple things that it's doing, and that's really important from a biophilia and biomimicry perspective.
That's good. And the other thing is about policies, because I've always realized sometimes when we do this type of designs, it feels disconnected from schools that are actually teaching architecture and spaces that teach architecture and design. When this particular policies, like for example, when you're building, there are certain strategies, and I'm trying to look for the name, where we get to build in a certain way. How do we put biomimicry as a not just another option, right, and incorporate it into our systems from school itself? How have you been able to integrate this into the academics?
I think, I mean, it's with the, with the practical thing that even with the forest we're doing, we're studying the native forest that exists. We're learning from the forest that's there to know what can actually survive in the city. Then we're observing what we have planted. We are learning from what has succeeded, what has failed. Maybe some plants we added, did not survive the pollution of the city, but some of them did. And so we learn, we adapt, and we iterate. So this idea of iteration is very much part of, of nature. Nature iterates. It tries something. Some species survive, some species don't. Some species become better at a certain thing. We learn about interdependence. So these things we teach, when we're giving workshops and lectures at schools and universities. We're teaching these ideas, these concepts of interdependence, of everything is connected to each other. I love, what Kai was saying, with the spider, that, when you're touching like one part, the whole web is actually shifting and changing and sensing. So these are the things that so with very practical examples, real world examples, we can bring these concepts to life in the minds of students, even when they're very, very young. So we worked with students, like 3 to 6 years old, and then we've worked with university students and all of that. So you can always find a way, like simply with nature, with real world examples to bring these concepts to life. And at the policy level, or other levels, it's like looking, as I was saying, a bit like the KPIs of a city, instead of those being like, oh, how much transport do I need and how many roads and all of that. It's like looking at this city replaced the forest. That forest used to be able to purify that many liters of water, and it used to be able to infiltrate and recharge the aquifers by that much, and it used to host this much density of creatures that were able to live there. So what is the carrying capacity of that land? So also these metrics, we start shifting the metrics to metrics that are more nature related.
All right, we have one more question from Tiffany as well, and I think you have mentioned something. Does government ever bring any challenges when you do such regenerative actions?
Always.
Always.
So we sidestep that. I mean, I don't know how much you know about Lebanon, but it's mostly like it's a failed state. We've had so many challenges, external challenges as well as internal challenges. We also have to recognize our own shortcomings. So we use the system kind of against itself. So because we have a kind of a lax government, so we are able to do these sort of guerrilla interventions without too much trouble. But our hope is always that, just let us do what we need to do. Like that's the most that we can expect. Anytime that we try to work with municipalities, with governments, ministries, it's always a block. Like everything is a block. Everything is not possible. And then we just go and do it with the community, and then no one actually cares that we're doing this. So as long as they don't stop our work, this is the most that we can hope for in our case.
Oh, well, all governments, even as we are experiencing the same, but something has to be done at the end of the day, and it has to start somewhere. Ellie is asking, what language do you use to get the community behind you so much, like the bank allowing you to use the parking space? What picture do you paint?
So, for example, with the bank, it was really, they reach out. They're like, oh, we want to do a team building exercise where, they come and they do, they plant at the Beirut River. And my challenge to them is like, you're going to have your team travel to the river, go plant one time, then never go back to see what they've done. Instead, like, give us a spot in your headquarters. They're like, no, we don't have, there's nowhere, what can we do? And then it's like challenge them, like, yes, you do have a space. It's that big parking spot that, can have like 300 cars. Give us one. They're like, impossible, no one will accept, the chairman will not accept, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end, it's like, they manage to, we speak the language of business and ESG and, the UN SDG goals that they say that they are following, all of these things. So we use their commitments that they've committed to, and we show them how this project we're doing actually is helping them in their commitments that they have publicly announced.
All right. Thank you so much. We are going to now go to, I think, the questions we are continue to ask, but we will ask after. We have a Q&A after the speakers have spoken, but I would like, I keep picking 1, 2, 3 questions when the speaker is in. So thank you so much, Adib, from Lebanon. It's always an amazing thing to learn from experts. This, I am continuing to learn. Biomimicry never gets old, I would say. It never gets old at any given point. So thank you so much. We're going to introduce our next speaker, Marlos. Marlos, are you around?
Yes, I'm still here.
Hi, how are you?
Very good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. All the way from South Africa.
All the way.
All the way.
Short line.
All the way from South Africa. So Marlos is a founder and director of Solid Green Consulting, one of Africa's leading sustainability consultancies, and has an amazing extensive 20 years advancing experience in sustainable practice in the built environment. So alongside her work, she is also a regenerative collaborative, an NGO. She established, a build movement around regenerative practice in the built environment. Everyone is just regenerative. Tell us more about this, Marlos.
Yeah, it's hopefully the new buzzword, and
I know.
also the new standard of of building our buildings when it comes to regeneration.
I know. I think after this webinar, I should add regenerative to my LinkedIn.
For sure. If more buildings can become regenerative, we can use it.
Yeah.
If we want. Okay. Should I
Yes,
cut
can
it
start.
off?
Yes, you can.
Great. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for inviting me here to come and speak. I'm very excited. We had Wangi on one of our webinars in South Africa last month, so I'm really happy to be here speaking to you all. So I'm wearing a little bit of 2 hats in the background. You probably see South Africa or Solid Green, which is my my commercial business, which is a green building sustainability consultancy, which we've been running in South Africa for the last 16 years. But my other hat that I'm wearing here now is I'm the founder and director of the Regenerative Collaborative of South Africa. And that is one of my passion projects because green is not sexy anymore and green is not pushing the boundaries enough. So I'm really trying to advocate for more regenerative ideas and built environment. So I started working with the International Living Future Institute, and we had a living building project in South Africa, and that really sparked to start the Regenerative Collaborative in South Africa, which is really a non-profit organization which is focused on transforming our built environment into a regenerative one. And we're really trying to break boundaries. We're trying to showcase examples. We're creating a platform where we can have conversations around projects in South Africa. You can not be an expert in everything we're doing. Like like we had the previous speakers speaking about bamboo and earth, and that's also exciting. So this platform is trying to bring all these people together and showcase projects so that we can learn from each other. We can learn from the challenges that we had, and so that we can create more buildings and more diversity of buildings. And the one thing is, like, this, it only takes one to make a difference. Like, if one person can bring a different project, like Abib was just showing his projects, that can stimulate and inspire and encourage other people to do the same, or at least reach out and make it a collaborative effort. So that's the Regenerative Collaborative. We're really trying to build this platform to showcase the stuff in South Africa. And how do we do that? We do that through monthly webinars in which we bring together speakers, we bring together experts in the industry, and we've been doing that now for 5 years. So we have quite a nice database of topics that are related to the built environment, and we're hosting them on our YouTube channel. So anything from nature-based solutions to net zero waste to we're talking about timber, mass timber. How do we get that into the market? How can we transform that into not just one project, but like 100 projects in South Africa? We're talking about regenerative hospitality, hemp construction, urban reforestations. You can name it and we talk about it. And I think that's really important, because then, the connections can happen, the inspiration can happen if we can showcase these projects. But just coming back to green buildings in South Africa, I was supposed to give like an overview of what's happening in South Africa. So in terms of like green buildings and certification systems, Green Star is the dominating system for new and existing buildings, and then we've got EDGE certification, which is related to mostly residential and logistics, and it's probably one of the fastest growing EDGE regions globally. And we're doing a lot of net zero certifications, and there's more than 1,200 projects that have been certified. The interesting part of that is that there's a lot of data that has been captured throughout the last 10 years around the cost of green, because people always ask the question, and this is like at any conference or at any presentation, how much it's more expensive, it's too expensive, like we can't do this. But the most interesting thing of all this data is that we have the proof that it's not more expensive, it's actually minimally more expensive, like 1 to 2% for 6-star buildings. And also the MSCI data also shows us that there's a definite business case for going green. Anyway, that's on certifications, and I don't want to get stuck on or bogged down on that, because certifications have helped us to become green or maybe sustainable, but it hasn't helped, and it's brought us that far, but it's not pushing the boundaries far enough. So, what we're doing with green buildings is like really trying to mitigate the damage that we're doing, but we're not yet doing more good for the environment. And that's really what we're trying to say when we talk about regenerative and restorative and buildings in here. So this slide is really to show you guys, like, you start off conventionally, which is minimizing the negative environment, and then we're starting to go towards more sustainable, net zero carbon and net zero waste and water and all those kind of things, and then going more into the green space, where we're going into regenerative, where we're talking about recreating and conserving ecosystems, biophilia, biomimicry. How can we bring nature back into the buildings? How can we design with climate and change, not climate change, with climate in mind? How can we design our buildings as such that they are resilient going forward? That's when the climate is changing, that the buildings can withstand that change. So that's really the space that the Regenerative Collaborative is offering a platform for people to showcase their projects. And the reason how I got into that was really around the Living Building Challenge. And if you haven't heard of the Living Building Challenge, it's definitely worthwhile finding out more about it as an inspirational, aspirational system. It is a certification system, but I think it's more around, you know, being motivated and being aspirational. So it looks at all these petals, like the Living Building Challenge. They have the metaphor of the flower. So all these categories are like petals, and they're looking at place and how can we restore the place that our building is on. They're looking at water, like looking at how can we operate our building with the water that is available to us. So not like drawing from the municipal water, but like, can I capture enough water from my roof for this building to sustain? And then how do I clean the wastewater coming out of my building? How can I clean that on my site and reuse it on my site? It looks at energy. You have to generate more energy than that you're using in the building, which is also interesting because now that changes the whole design idea for architects on completely upside down, because now you first have to calculate how much energy you can generate before you can say, oh, I'm going to build my building like this. The energy budget dictates how the building is going to be designed and how much energy it can use. So that is just a different way of thinking. And we find that architects not necessarily think that way or adapt in that way. Health and happiness, so really making sure that it's a space where people want to be in, and that is including biophilia, making sure that, you know, bringing nature back into the building. And as you mentioned earlier, it's not just about a couple of pot plants here and there. It's really the bigger framework of looking at natural colors, natural forms, natural materials, all those things that create this space where people feel a lot more happier and healthier. Then there's materials where you look at selecting materials that are not polluted or then don't have any toxins in them. So you can't have formaldehyde in it. You can't have VOCs in them. So you're really trying to look for natural materials that are in its original form. It also looks at equity, which I think a lot of green building systems ignore. So trying to support just and an equitable world. The Living Building Challenge may be not the right criteria for our continent as Africa, because their equity is different from our equity. So I think we have to even come up with our own Living Building Challenge system for Africa, because I think like we have our own context and we have our own items that we need to address, and it's still on my to-do list, but one day I will come up with a framework that is suitable and contextualized for our continent. And then also a really nice one is beauty, because also green buildings don't necessarily address beauty, but I think it's an important one, because these buildings need to inspire the communities around them. They need to inspire everybody around them so that we can create more of them. So what are some of the projects that we're featuring on our webinars? So this one I haven't featured, but it's a nice example of a commercial building that really adopted Biophilia. This is the Amazon headquarters in Cape Town, and they had a project that was called ARC, and that was a restoration conservation project. And so the building was close to 2 rivers, so that had to be completely upgraded and made sure that the wetlands were functional again and working again. And then they also, in their interiors, they really focused on using natural materials, local art, and they even put in an aquarium, like focusing on the critical critical and endangered species. So do you guys hear the noise, or is it just me? Just me. Okay. Yeah, there's a mosque behind our office, and it's prayer time. So glad you guys are not hearing that. Okay. So another project we featured, which was really amazing, and we've had a number of webinars around earth as a building material, and John was also talking about it earlier. It's an amazing material to build buildings with, and this project showcases 5 different types of building with earth. So it looked at sandbags, it looked at rammed earth, it looked at rammed bricks, and I can't remember the other 2, but like it's just beautiful what you can achieve with, you know, building with a material that you find on site, and you mold it into something that you can live in. And this project was like low tech. It was built with the local people in the environment, or the local communities, and you know, it was built with soil from around the site. And then this project was also super interesting. It's innovation hubs that are being built throughout South Africa, but the focus here is not so much on like the building materials, but more the social aspect. So how can you design a building where you can make use of local labor, untrained labor? So then your design needs to start thinking and shifting from, okay, I only have 4 seconds left. I'm running out of time, but like really simplifying the design so that you can work with unskilled labor. We've been having many webinars on timber. This is an example of a CLT project in South Africa. And another very interesting topic is artificial intelligence, AI, and biomimicry. So we also did a webinar on that. So yeah, there's just too much to talk about. There's too many different topics around regenerative buildings and biophilia. So I'm going to stop it there. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for having me. And I'd love to see you all in Nairobi in August for the actual conference.
Thank you so much for your presentation. My question is in terms of the frameworks that you were thinking about. What types of what is the thought process in the frameworks in the African context? Because most of the time we have things that are we take from the West. In the African context, when you have, I'm pretty sure you've dealt with the lead, edge, all this. What is your thought process in having a framework in the African context?
It should just be contextualized to the realities that we are having with communities, with unemployed people. How can we generate? How can the building design or construction generate employment? How can we teach and educate? How can we make the building part of the whole developmental economics as well. So not just like, what is this building going to be, what is it going to be made of, but more the social economic aspects of the building. So as I meant, local labor, unskilled labor, so easy building techniques, and then all the other things, like within these building systems, you have these complicated tests that you need to complete, which we can't do in our, like, not even in South Africa. So just making it simple systems, but effective systems, and taking into account the socio-economic context.
Yeah, we really need those things in the African context, because I'm trying to imagine where some of these frameworks always feel like you're ticking a checkbox, like, okay, you have a plant, check, you have this, check. But does it feel like, the way Kai was saying, we are not detached. We are human beings that are not detached from our buildings and from nature, and creating these frameworks that feel like we are all connected into one.
Yeah, and the lead and the Green Star, they don't really, I mean, they are designed to be for the internet. You can't just like a project in
Generalized.
Cape Town is not the same as a project in Amsterdam or in the Seattle or wherever. I mean, you can't have one system that should be globally the same. Like we're so different.
I totally agree. And where we're going to put, you know, bamboo into the mix, where we're going to put Tramdath into the frameworks. But this is amazing, especially the frameworks. I cannot wait for the more conversations you're going to give us at the conference on August 13th and 14th. And I will be holding on to you for the frameworks. I love seeing when things develop into the bigger picture. And this is the purposes of having such webinars and conferences, is that we take it to the books, we take it from the books to practicability, and not just having webinars on a constant basis, yet there's no results. So this is amazing for that particular conversation. And I can see we have actually, time has gone. It's already 4:44. And our last speaker will be Paul. Paul will be, will bring up the entire umbrella for the GBLS. Paul, are you around? Paul, is Paul around? Are you around? Or is it the volume? Hi, Paul.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. It's a bit, I don't know if it's from my end, but.
Oh, yeah. Great.
Yeah. Hi, how are you?
I'm keeping well. Thank you so much.
Yes,
How are you doing?
well.
Yeah.
I'm well, fantastic. The webinar has been amazing. And Paul, you are, you're a big person in the GBLS, our commercial and partnership lead. You drive a lot of our stakeholder arrangements. And for you as a project manager and holding, the EDGE expert certification, we were just speaking with Marlos about certifications here and how we need a framework in the African context. And I think you are challenged to create one as an expert in that. But to close us off, would you give us the bigger picture of the GBLS and the Africa Biophilic Building Conference?
Thank you, Marcy. You're not trying to humble me in any way whatsoever. And I'm equally challenged by the fact that from an African lens, we do a lot of this, but we don't have a framework that actually puts into perspective what we do or the context that is local. And we'll take that up, Marlos. Thanks for the challenge. Looking forward to having a deeper conversation with you on how this can be achieved. But beyond that, Marcy, maybe you could put up the latest flyer that we have. I'm currently not in a position to have my camera on. I'm in a site, and also my network is not that stable. So,
okay, Ellie is helping with the screen sharing.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah,
I can just speak as he does so.
Yeah.
First of all, is to thank you very much. You're the moderator. And again, to all the speakers for such a rich and inspiring conversation. For the record, I'm not here to contribute from an expert lens again, because that would be another 20 minutes. See, your time is so far much gone, and I'd want to utilize just the next 5 or so to paint a picture of what we will have at the conference. The good thing with speaking last is that you get to echo match what has been said. So you never get to invent the wheel or put out forward, take expertise. And as I was listening to all these presentations, I found myself imagining, a very different African city. So I was imagining myself walking into a building where, the first thing that I notice is not the hum of mechanical systems, but, the sound of water and birds, and sunlight filters, through the shaded courtyards. And the biggest part, again, the air, it being cool, and not because of excessive energy use through our cooling systems and all that, but because the building was designed to actually breathe, which is biomimicry at play. So children can see trees from their classrooms, hospital patients recover in their rooms connected to gardens, which is what used to happen earlier in our health spaces, office workers stepping out into green terraces and returning more focused, less stressed and healthier. So that feeling, that sense of calm, that connection, that life, that is what biophilia is really all about. And you rightfully put it out earlier that biophilia is misunderstood as just adding plants to buildings or just using bamboo or other earth materials. Yes, I agree. Those are valuable tools. Those are valuable materials, but they're not the definition of biophilia. So that intentionality behind design of places and that reconnection to human beings with nature, culture and living systems, will form a key part of what we'll discuss. So it is about daylight, it is about fresh air, it's about water, it is about biodiversity. We're looking at natural materials, as I already discussed. We're looking at patterns, as was earlier said by Kai, that mimic nature. We're looking at spaces that support human well-being. And we have to ask the question that we have been asking, and we are repeating it again. We're repeating it. How do we create buildings that help people thrive rather than merely shelter them? So from today, we've had powerful examples right from the start, all the way to the last. Malo is Adib, we had John, we had Brian, Kai, and we are rethinking bamboo innovation. We are thinking earth construction. We are rethinking how to regenerate. We are rethinking NBS, nature-based solutions, and biomimicry. So I'm glad to say that at the conference we are looking forward to hearing from Bambusa, sometimes called Atlants, who are heavy on bamboo. They'll be on ground on that day, so you don't want to miss out to have a practical example of bamboo in use. We will have Kitengela Hot Glass, which was represented in this meeting. I'd seen Halsem in the meeting. And, these are people who are pushing boundaries of what African design can become, utilizing colors and patterns and sounds and air within our decorative spaces. And the story becomes even more exciting, for a long time, Africa has been looked from the global North perspective as a place where we just adopt solutions, and the issue of frameworks must come out strongly. And we're looking forward to having, maybe a declaration at the conference where we can kickstart this conversation. And we can't just be adopting solutions that have been developed elsewhere without being tried locally. We have that opportunity, and I believe that we are entering into a different era where Africa is not merely going to participate, in the future of sustainable building, but we'll be here to help build it, to help shape it. And that is the vision behind the conference. Our ancestors, the people that came before us, John said our great-great-grandparents, they understood climate responsive design long before sustainability became a global industry issue. We've been building using earth, we've been building using local materials, and earth was not just another low-cost alternative. It was a high performance solution. And that is what we want to discuss. It's not an alternative on saving, but rather an alternative into restoring how we used to design and build. Nowadays, you look into our homes, but courtyards are more seen as aesthetic features. But they are beyond that. These are passive cooling systems. Indigenous landscape, they were not just decoration. They were not just meant to improve, the value of the property. They were part of the ecological infrastructure of communities. And the fact is today, research institutions, innovators, manufacturers, even practitioners across the continent are rediscovering this and advancing that knowledge. So we are not building from scratch. We are not building from borrowed knowledge. We are building from remembrance. We are building what has been happening for years and years and years in the country. And that is what the conference will be all about. The good part is we have the opportunity to combine, this traditional wisdom with modern science, digital tools, and sustainable financing. And that is exactly why the Africa Biophilic Building Conference and Expo will be quite important to the attendees and even to us, the experts in the space as well. You will not be walking into just a conventional conference room. We will transform the venue into a living gallery of biophilic and regenerative design. So we will have exhibitions, material demonstrations, conversations, and networking spaces that will allow you to experience the ideas that we've discussed today, now in practice. So over the 2 days, you'll get a chance to explore nature-centered architecture and urban design. You'll also get a chance to explore regenerative and restorative development, regenerative becoming the favorite word of this webinar. We have health, wellness, and occupant-focused performance, nature-positive building materials, e.g. bamboo, earth, timber, and circular construction. We look into biomimicry and climate adaptation. We'll also look into biodiversity integration into buildings and cities, culture, identity, and indigenous knowledge in design, green finance, ESG, and investment opportunities, policy standards, and implementation pathways. So the program has been designed in a manner that everything and everyone is not left behind. And here is what you will miss if you don't attend. I strongly believe if you don't come, if you only attend this webinar, don't attend the conference, you'll miss the opportunity to meet the developers, who are actively looking for healthier and climate smart projects. So you will miss on these researchers as well who are presenting emerging African evidence. You will miss the manufacturers who are showcasing new products. You will miss policymakers, shaping the next generation of building framework. You will miss the investors exploring where capital is flowing in the sustainability transition. And most importantly, and lastly, you will miss the conversations that happen between sessions. The partnerships that happen over coffee, the idea that is sketched in a notebook from a statement, the introduction that becomes a project 6 months later. You're looking at missing on that as an individual, as a professional, or as a firm. So this webinar for me, and as we logo, it is a ramp to a continental movement, and we are honored to be convening this movement with an extraordinary group of partners and supporters. Wangoi acknowledged the work that volunteers have done, and personally, as a key part of this, I've seen what goodwill and curiosity and wanting to just do good can do. And we want to expand this and make it bigger for everybody else. And this is why, as a partnership team, we were quite deliberate on wanting to integrate the conversations and not just to have people or organizations speaking in silos. So we've managed to bring together partners. As you can see in the flyer, we'll have our official endorser, which is the State Department for Public Works. We've brought on board Institutional Surveyors of Kenya, who are in this meeting, Town and County Planners Association of Kenya, in this meeting, Emily Sang, I see you. Association of Construction Managers of Kenya, again in this meeting, Association of Designers of Kenya, Interior Designers Society of Kenya, Women in Real Estate, Global Buildings Performance Network, GBPN, a key anchor to this conference, Olepangi Farm, will lead an entire session and have to present the work they're doing in Laikipia, the foothills of Mount Kenya. We have Regenerative Collaborative South Africa. Malois was one of our presenters today, all the way from South Africa. We have Habitamonia, our international partner from Europe, International Well Building Institute. The question, or rather what we've not discussed today is, are we measuring the right metrics? Or as Fabian would put it, we are not measuring how people, actually feel within these buildings. And I know Rosette is in this call, Rose Gisheru, will be speaking on how to actually measure this aspect, which for so long has not been quantified. We have Biophilic Design, Habitamonia, again from Europe, Biophilic Journal Design, and a group of all other partners we are still onboarding, as well as sponsors such as Urban Green Consultants, one of the biggest in Eastern Africa, Amresh. They're leading sustainability movement, but we wanted to go beyond that and into measuring now these metrics that actually count. I'm glad to also say that we have institutional support and engagement from organizations, some that don't want to be mentioned directly because they have not been formalized. But we see you, we understand your support. They've actually helped amplify this conversation. We've been published a couple of times on other platforms as well. And if you're a local practitioner, you're practicing in Kenya, and you're an architect, a QS, a physical planner, or a project manager, or a land surveyor, there are CPD points for you, ranging from 5 CPD points to 10 CPD points. So your participation contributes again directly to your professional growth, whether you are an architect, a planner, engineer, surveyor, construction manager, interior designer, developer, an academic, student, or just a sustainability professional. And just to leave it here with a final image, I want you to see yourself 1 year from now, standing in a completed project that is way cooler, way healthier, greener, and more loved by its users because of one idea that you encountered at this pre-conference. And again, put and strengthened during the conference in August. It could be passive design strategy or anything else, but I want you to picture yourself 1 year from now, standing in a completed project that is way cooler, way healthier, greener, and more loved by its users. This is back to you, Mercy. I know as a parting shot, it will only be a good thing to do to also bring back Wangui Mwangi, who is the founder and convener of this conference.
I agree. Thank you so much for the detailed explanation for everything about the conference that is happening in August 13th and 14th. Finally, we now bring Wangui. We are at the end. Wangui Mwangi, would you like to close it?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everybody who is still on the call. Thank you to our speakers, Marlos, Brian, Adib, John, Kai, Paul. It's been an amazing webinar for me. I believe for you as well. I've been writing a few reflections. I'm more of a writer, so I've just been writing reflections as I was listening to our speakers, as I was seeing the conversations, rather the questions being posted on the chat. And I think as much as each speaker came from a different perspective, or maybe different materials, using different materials, I believe they are answering the same question. And the question is, how do we build buildings in ways that restore life rather than diminish it? And one thing that I'd like to clarify before we close out is that, this is not essentially trying to amplify different alternative building materials and technologies in isolation, but rather it's showcasing the tools that lead us to biophilia. It showcases how different choices that designers, policymakers, builders, and communities can actually take to strengthen health, to strengthen biodiversity, to strengthen identity, cultural identity, resilience, and our relationship with nature. So all these different materials, all these different ways of looking at things are just showcasing what has been severed, and that is the relationship that we have with nature. And all these, different ways and different tools are taking us back to the destination, which is biophilia, our inborn love for nature. So, and for Africans, I really love always mentioning this. For Africa, this is a remembrance, because this is a way of life that we have lived. And, today's conversation has also showed us that life is more than human. Life is not just about us. It's about the pollinators. It's about the bees and the butterflies. And our buildings and the spaces that we create should be able to also consider these different species that live amongst us. So I think, thank you so much to all the incredible speakers and to all the incredible supporters of Biophilia. I see Anselm in the call, I see Women in Real Estate, I see ISK. Paul has mentioned most of the partners. I can see them in the call. Thank you so much. I know there's been a lot of curiosity in trying to understand how to integrate biophilia, in how you do your jobs, in how you create the frameworks within your organizations. And I'm really happy to see you in this call. And I'm happy to also have you supporting the conference so that we can actually come up with an African biophilia framework that answers to all these questions. How do we integrate all these different tools and take, there's a statement that Brian Onen said, I can't remember how it went, but it was quite hilarious. It's about using what you have. So how do we use what we have? If we have a lot of soil that is good for construction, if we have bamboo, if we have mushrooms, we had someone last year who was showcasing how they're building with mycelium and mushroom. So how do we bring all this into a unified framework? How do we make this measurable? How do we measure the effect of beauty that Kitengela glass offers when they create their, windows with stained glass? So this is a collective effort. This is not something that we can do in isolation. And this is just to say, I'm happy to see you all here. And I think to the speakers, thank you for your generosity, because I know, for example, Adi, Malos, actually all of you are really quite prime in your different spaces, but you've really been supportive of this conversation in terms of offering your knowledge and in terms of showcasing that these ideas are not theoretical, these ideas are doable, and they can be enhanced with technology, but in a way that balances our relationship and our love for nature. So thank you so much. And just everybody in the call, kindly join me in giving an applause to our speakers, to our moderator. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And to everybody that has joined today, please clap for yourself. This is such an African thing, but clap for yourself for being here all this time. And of course, once again, to the incredible volunteers at GBLS. GBLS is fully a volunteer space. I can see Fabian, volunteers from France as well, who are really helping us in terms of the research space as well. From South Africa, I can see guys from Egypt. Thank you so much for all the immense support that you've given to us. And this is just the beginning. If today's conversation has made you more curious, has made you more interested in wanting to, get back in touch with your love for nature, I don't know, maybe upscale it in the way you live, in the way you build if you're a developer, then once again, we invite you to the Africa Biophilia Conference and Expo, where this will actually be more practical with the people who are exhibiting. You'll get to see really interesting stuff. The way we'll transform the hall into a living biophilic gallery. So over those 2 days, we'll be having government. I know government is a touchy, thorny name and subject, but we'll be having government, industry, academia, policymakers, developers. Everybody's thirsting you know, for reconnecting back to nature and our identity. People want warm houses. People want spaces that they love. People don't want to stay in cold buildings, you know. So everybody's thirsting for this. So come help us to define this framework, help us move forward, localize some of the research that has been there since the 60s on biophilia. Let's reclaim this, you know. Let's bring the African stories that have not been told. And there's so many. Let's anchor this into something that becomes a way of life that we leave the next generation. And yeah, if you want to partner, to exhibit, to showcase, we will stretch. We were closing partnerships tomorrow, but for the new people I'm seeing in the call, if you'd like to participate, just reach out to us, register. We'll also extend the early bird up to the end of next week. I've been seeing that question a lot, so we'll extend it to end of next week. And yeah, as we close, I think let me leave with a parting shot that yes, we are not just jumping on a global conversation, but we're actually defining what biophilia is like in an African perspective. And I think we're offering solutions that are bigger, fresher, and more grounded in nature. So thank you so much. And asanteni sana. Really happy for this conversation and looking forward to how deep it will get at the conference. So see you all there. And back to you, Mercy.
Thank you so much for that detailed. I cannot wait to continue this conversation in our conference on August 13th and 14th. I hope I get to see all of you. Thank you so much for your patience and for your curiosity in this. Let us continue to create, you know, this. It's not an imaginative future, but our now. The future is our now. So let's continue to have these conversations. Until next time, continue being inspired and continue being regenerative. I think that is the word we get to carry today. And thank you so much for everyone. And that is all for me. And I think now we are done for today, right, Wangwe?
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yes.
If anybody wants to reach out, sorry, info@greenbiophilicliving.com, or just find us on socials. We are very active on LinkedIn. So yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone. My name is Wanjiko Ndiangui. See you in August.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Jesus. Yeah.
Just in case you want to register, there is a link on the chat for the people And you can follow on the socials, Green Biophilic Living, everywhere till LinkedIn.